Who barks? Is it the wolves of the High One, or is it the hearkening of the village dogs? Hearken to me, you two-legged beasts. Drink from the mead of knowledge. To learn what it is to live and die in honor. To be in battle slain, and in death put in the Valkyrie's embrace. Earlier this year, I made a pretty casual review of what I still consider my favorite movie of the year so far, Robert Eggers' The Northman. In the video's title, I posed a question as to whether or not the movie would save cinema. It didn't. As it turned out, Top Gun Maverick was the film that was both great and also a massive commercial success and boon for cinemas worldwide. The Northman, however, flopped. According to the numbers, it only made about $69 million against a budget that was somewhere between $70 and $90 million. No matter how you shake it, it didn't perform well at the box office. Sadly, its poor performance led to Eggers stating that he had to re-strategize his career. It's honestly a shame, because the movie was great. I don't want to get into what could have been done differently to sell the movie better. Obviously, the poster sucked and made it look like a generic action film, which probably turned off some people. But what's done is done. Like a lot of great movies before it, it might not have done well in the cinemas, but I think that it will be a film that stands the test of time. So join me today as we take a look at what makes The Northman a modern classic. But before we get to that, here's a message from my sponsor. Sponsor time! Hey, what's up guys? I know it's been a couple months since I've uploaded a video. That's because I took a new job here at Fudo as basically their video guy. I'm shooting all their videos for them, and you can see all the videos I've shot in a link in the description. I run their YouTube channel. I do a whole bunch of really interesting podcast-style interviews as well as other kinds of videos. And actually, I'm working with another YouTuber now, Louis Rossman. So Louis, just tell me a bit about what you do, and I'll be working with Louis a lot in the future, so you'll probably see us in videos together, or I'll be shooting his videos for him.
We'll be doing free open to the public repair workshops, and we'll also be working on community outreach to find more people who are aligned with our vision to come work here.
So anyways, guys, I just wanted to have this quick little side so you could go check out the other videos I'm working on and just look forward to what Louis and I are going to be doing in the future.
That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something.
Dude, I need to know, as a bro, if somebody killed me, would you avenge me?
If somebody killed you, man, they would be dead within 24 hours. We all avenge our kings, man. Hey, Greg. Are you different? You look a little different.
That ritual really changed me.
Greg, you've been stabbed! I was shocked by the sudden murder of my king, Greg, and soon I saw who did it. Our ex-bro Thorolf. Even though I ran away in fear and pissed my pants, I swore I would kill Thorolf and bring honor back to Greg. The Northman is an enigma in today's contemporary film world. It's a movie with a large budget that's like if Conan the Barbarian was made by Andrei Tarkovsky, but with a story that's an amalgamation of Hamlet, Macbeth, Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, and an assortment of Icelandic sagas. It straddles the line between art house and blockbuster, and, in a way, feels out of time. The pacing of the film is definitely closer to Conan than to any contemporary big-budget epic, but that's not the main reason. Eggers presents the film not as a modern man recounting an ancient tale, but as an ancient tale standing on its own. It feels like a saga written in the 12th century that was a transcription of oral tales passed down through the generations. Eggers doesn't project himself onto the characters, and he doesn't moralize about anything that happens. He immerses us in their world, both on a physical level and on a spiritual level. On the physical level, Eggers was obsessed with keeping everything period accurate. Obsessed might even be an understatement. The clothes, buildings, ship designs, weapons, etc. were made to look as realistic to the time as possible. He had historians and experts on set to advise on every minute detail of the film. Here are some examples. The characters, in large part, don't fight with swords, but rather with axes and spears. This is because swords were expensive and possessions of the wealthy, so it would have been inaccurate to show poor Berserkir and Ulflonor fighting with swords. Also, the buildings in the movie are period accurate, meaning they don't have any windows. That's a major problem for cinematography, as you need light and usually lots of light to capture an image on film. So they depended on the fire within the buildings when they could, or else they made the smoke holes and the roofs larger to allow for more sunlight to make its way onto the set. But considering the fact that there are large holes in what we know about about the time, some assumptions had to be made. For example, there was some speculation and creativity into how the characters' helmets looked, with Eggers admitting that the most period-accurate helmet in the film is Fjolnir's. Eggers also couldn't find definitive proof of the branding of Christians, but included it all the same because it didn't seem too far-fetched. The film also was mostly shot in Northern Ireland, not Iceland, due to COVID restrictions. The filmmakers comped in Icelandic mountains into the backgrounds of shots in order to make it feel like Iceland, even if it wasn't. Really, the most inaccurate part of the movie was the fact that everyone speaks modern English. But that wasn't Eggers' decision, but rather the studio's. According to Eggers, the budget was too high for the studio to justify having the film in Old Norse. He still snuck in some bits of Old Norse and Ukrainian into the movie, but only in small doses. Looking back on how the film performed, they should have just let him have his way. The other ahistorical thing I want to point out is Bjork's costume. Her headdress is based on a Ukrainian bridal crown from a later period, and it's made to look like she has a third eye to cement her as a seeress. The costume designer was more creative with Bjork's look because her character occupies this space between reality and myth, a space that the Northman explores quite extensively. What makes the Northman feel genuine to me is not the absurd attention to historical detail. That all is incredibly appreciated. But rather, I think what it gets right is that it shows us their world through their eyes. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that I don't think it's enough for us to get an ultra-realistic portrayal of the time period, because we'd invariably judge the characters by our own modern standards. What Eggers presents is their real world through their worldview. A worldview in which they saw reality and myth coexisting. A worldview that valued ritual and veneration of the gods. A worldview that compelled them to cut out corpse doors and houses if someone died in the house, for fear of the body becoming a vampire. Their perspective, which might seem alien to modern audiences, shapes how they see their world. So Eggers incorporates it into the film, transforming this Viking tragedy into a fantastical saga. Let's dive into how the Northman incorporates myth into its storytelling and look at the themes that Eggers explores in this saga. Hamlet lives in a world of gods and monsters. He lives in a world in which Thor killed the giants, a world in which Kvasir's blood was turned into the mead of poetry, and a world in which Loki turned himself into a horse in order to seduce and get impregnated by a stallion to save Asgard. That's a real myth, and it's actually a really good one. Hamlet assumes the role of the mythic hero that we see in the Icelandic sagas, meaning that he's a man of great heroism, but he's also incredibly flawed and prone to violence. He's not meant to be a bastion of morality or a squeaky clean Disney hero. Near the beginning of the film, when he's invading the village in Ukraine, his men recreate the barn burning scene from Come and See, burning alive the women and children of the town. But how much of what he does is really up to him? Throughout the film, there's this persistent idea that he's fated to do everything that he does. Was the thread of his life woven before he was born? If so, can he take personal responsibilities for his actions? And could he have altered the course of events? Hamlet, at least, feels like he's an actor in a pre-written play. He has a story to play out, and the ending is already written in stone. According to Eggers, a lot of people at this time were fatalistic, but I think that with Hamlet, he also uses this outlook to justify some of his more heinous actions. These heinous actions that spring forth out of a cycle of violence in which Hamlet finds himself. The film opens with Hamlet's father and uncle coming back from war victorious, though his father Arvandil suffered a great wound to his torso, a wound he makes Hamlet touch during Hamlet's coming-of-age ritual. Let's talk about this ritual for a second. In this sequence, Eggers plays with duality, fool and sage, father and son, man and beast. Just moments before this scene, we see Hymir hop around the welcome home party in a jester's outfit, making jokes about how Arvandil's wife Gudrun was having sex with Arvandil's brother Fjolnir. Now, we witness him as a sage, speaking ritual text, much of which comes from the teachings of Odin. These roles might seem at first glance to be polar opposites, but they're closer than you might think. While occupying the role of the fool, Hymir speaks the harsh truth to the king while softening the blow with humor. As the sage, Hymir speaks a spiritual truth during ritual. So in both cases, he maintains the role of truth teller. Truly, he's an artist, a man wise enough to be a fool who dares speak truth to the king. On the other side of the fire in this scene are father and son, Arvandil and Hamlet. The purpose of the ritual is to bring Hamlet into manhood and impart into him ancient wisdom. They drink henbane, a psychedelic, and are made to bark and growl like dogs until they must prove their humanity by burping and farting. This scene solidifies a connection between Hamlet and wolves. His parents called him a pup before this scene, but now he channels the energy of the beasts. You see, the Norse in those days had a similar concept to what we know as spirit animals. This belief, called totemism, asserts that everyone has an animal linked to them. These animals are connected to their personalities, but also guide them through their lives. In the Northman, we clearly see that Arvindil's spirit animal is the raven, while Amlet's is the wolf. When we jump a couple decades into the future, after Arvindil's death and Amlet's escape, we see a wholly different Amlet from the one we came to know at the beginning of the film. He's large, strong, and intimidating. There's not an ounce of naivete in him. Who was once an innocent boy full of joy and wonder, is now a man consumed by revenge and violence. He wears a wolfskin when he attacks the village in Ukraine. He's not a berserker, but an ulfidnya. Sorry if I mispronounced that. In the gorgeous tracking shot through the battle in the town, we see him decimate his foes like they're nothing. And then, like a wolf, he rips out one man's throat with his teeth. In Iceland, we see him with wolves and foxes. Like a wolf, he stalks the farm at night, hiding in the shadows while he hunts his prey. His embrace of his wolf self makes him dangerous and into a being that the residents see as something supernatural. But he's not an angry god that can be appeased by a sacrifice. He's a man bound to a quest of revenge. No sacrifice can satiate his thirst for blood.
By the enemy's sword, you must avenge me or forever live in shame.
I will, Father.
And it is during the coming-of-age ritual that he makes an oath to avenge his father should someone take his father's life. He makes the oath right before touching his father's open wound and witnessing the Tree of Kings, which is based on a tree from the Oseberg Tapestry. The oath Amleth made to his father was not something either of them took lightly. Once Fjolnir murdered Arvindil, he set the course for Amleth's life. Amleth could have lived his own life and swore off revenge, but that wouldn't make sense for who he was or for the time period. Eggers doesn't think revenge is a good thing, and he's not advocating for revenge, but it wouldn't fit the story for Amleth to discover that revenge is actually a bad thing. That's not to say he doesn't witness the dark side of vengeance. In his quest to restore some semblance of honor to his family's name, he murders Thorir in his bed and kills his own mother and half-brother. His mission of revenge also unveils to him uncomfortable truths that he would probably be content not knowing, such as his mother's preference for Fjolnir. She transforms from the fantasy Madonna version he had in his mind into a Lady Macbeth type of character, calling into question the point, or rather pointlessness, of his quest. Was his father the hero he thought he was? Was his mother behind the plot to kill his father? Does his mother actually need saving? Why is he on this mission? To avenge his father, who might not have been the great man he thought he was. To save his mother, who really doesn't need saving. To kill Fjolnir, who already lost his kingdom in Norway. I think it comes back to both fate and honor. He is, or he feels he is, fated to finish what he started. He has the will of the gods on his side, and, he's not wrong. When Fjolnir and his men tie him up and torture him, ravens peck him free from his rope while Odin stands behind him. In a way, he wins in the end, at least in his mind. Like many heroes of the old sagas, he's forced to make a difficult choice between two options, living in fear of Fjolnir taking revenge on Amlet's new family, or fighting Fjolnir to the death. He chooses the most honorable option, which is the latter. As they fight in Hell with one L, which is the name of the Norse underworld and Loki's daughter who rules it, they appear as mythical, legendary figures against the fiery lava. They both die in the fight, avenging their respective families and ending the cycle of violence that began at the beginning of the film. The last shot sees Amleth ascending from Hell to Valhalla, having died a warrior's death in order to secure the safety of his family. We can safely assume that he will join his uncle and possibly his father in the Great Hall of Warriors.
I could end the video here, but I just want to backtrack a little bit and answer some questions that some of you might have about the movie. Namely, why is that one dude wearing women's clothing, and what's up with that mound dweller fight?
Well, there was this idea in Old Norse cultures that people who practice dark magic cross-dressed. There's a kind of androgyny then associated with these kinds of shamanic figures. And it wasn't only in Norse cultures that this association existed. Gender-bending shamans existed in a lot of ancient cultures and religions. The He-Witch uses his dark magic to cause Hymir's mummified head to talk, which is something based in Norse myth, as Odin keeps the head of Mimir to give him guidance. And, like Mimir, Hymir provides guidance to Amleth and lets him know how to obtain Draugr, or the Nightblade, a legendary blade that only opens at night or at the gates of Hell. From there, he sets out to find the burial mound in which the Nightblade rests. Like many Old Norse heroes, Amleth descends into the mound and battles the mound dweller for the treasure. After he defeats the mound dweller, he sticks its head in its ass, which is, in the lore, the way to completely kill a ghost or undead figure. So if you're ever dealing with a ghost or specter, now you know how to kill it. Shove its head up its butt. This is why I love The Northman. It feels like an old saga that was adapted into a movie. The attention to detail and reverence for the culture, time period, and stories elevate The Northman from being a good or great medieval action movie into being an honest and genuine film. This movie got me into reading more Norse mythology and sagas, so I'll end this video by recommending some things that I read in preparation for this video. Eyrbyggja Saga, the Saga of Grettir the Strong, Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, and an assortment of Norse mythology books that I will link in the description below. And one last little fun fact about the movie. Remember from my Lighthouse video where I talked about how Eggers used a cyan filter to simulate orthochromatic film? He uses the same filter in this movie during the nighttime scenes. That's why they all look so silvery and drained of all reds. Some days later, I challenged Thorolf to a duel. Surely, I would win because I'm the good guy. However, I've really never practiced sword fighting, so in actuality, he won. Sorry, Greg. I guess we're both dead now.